get that started?
Yes.
Only because the last class I didn't quite get through. And that's okay, I mean, if I don't, I don't finish. So, my name is Karen Robinson, and just going to tell you guys, explain how to make what I call tea infusions, or teas, also called infusions, and how to make them out of a lot of plants that you can grow in your yard in Florida. So, can everyone see up here? And the plants. So I'm going to get started just because we ran out of time, and then we can hopefully get through with this class. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, I should say before I forget, is the ratios. So generally, if you're making tea infusions, you want to use a teaspoon of dehydrated herbs to a cup of water, because they're more potent, because all the water's been extracted or pulled out of the herb. So you need less of it. If you're using fresh herb, like this fresh herb, you would use a tablespoon of herb to a cup of water. So I'm going to get started with that, and then move on. So I brought a recipe for bone broth tea, or bone broth ginger, what I call ginger soup. Oh, I got one here.
Oh, you've got one.
And I wanted to show you guys how to make a really easy broth for the flu or for any respiratory type illnesses, especially viruses, because ginger works well on respiratory issues. So the easiest thing to do is you can buy ginger from the grocery store, and you want to use about a thumb size. It's about a thumb size piece of ginger. And you would just peel it. You would peel your ginger. I peeled it in the last class for the most part. So, and you can cut it into slices, and you're going to put it into either quart of water, or this is a quart of bone broth. So I like bone broth because it has nutritional value, especially when you're sick. It has added nutrients that will help you just to get well. So this is a quart size of bone broth. So this is what you would use if you're using it in water, about a quart. So you would put this on the stove, start heating it up. You'd cut up your ginger and add it to your bone broth, and then take a half an onion and use a half an onion and cut it up just roughly. Doesn't have to be finely chopped up. And you're going to simmer, let it simmer for about 30 minutes. And then you're going to strain it. And you can add cayenne pepper, if you want to add cayenne pepper. If your stomach can handle it, you can add cayenne pepper. And you can add a little bit of like brown sugar or blackstrap molasses. I like adding blackstrap molasses because it's also loaded with vitamins and minerals. So whatever you like, you could add honey if you like honey. If you're giving it to children, make it how they like it, because otherwise they won't drink it. But my children always would drink this as long as I didn't add anything really weird to it. So, yeah, my daughter better than my son, but she's in her mid-20s now. When she gets sick, she'll ask me if I don't mind making it for her, and I don't at all. I love making this. But it's really good. So I'm going to go over why I use a red onion versus a white onion. I use the red onion because red onions contain a constituent called quercetin in it. And quercetin helps your body absorb zinc. So it just helps, your body does not absorb zinc easily, but quercetin is one of those constituents that helps it absorb zinc, and zinc fights off viruses. So our whole goal with this ginger soup is to fight off a virus, a chest infection, respiratory issue, and this will just help a little bit. So I'm going to go over what everything does in this recipe. So the cayenne pepper is what we call a vasodilator. It opens up your blood vessels, it opens up the sinuses, and it just gets the medicinal properties of these other plants into your system a little bit quicker. So it spreads it throughout your body and helps open everything up where all these can get into your system much quicker. It opens up the circulation. The ginger loosens up the chest phlegm, so a lot of times when you get the flu, a lot of people with the coronavirus, they've had
That's the Stirpa.
Yeah. But the ginger just loosens up the phlegm. All right, that's so cute too. The onion fights inflammation. It has allium, which has antioxidants and minerals, and the allium is good for colds as well as viruses. And that's the same chemical that your garlic has, where a lot of people like to eat garlic. It's because of the allium. So this is what you're putting in lieu of garlic. And then you can add other herbs and vegetables if you want. Like you could put anything really. You could cut up carrots and whatever you want. If you have celery, celery helps fight inflammation. You could put it in your soup when you cook it, but when you go to serve it, you're going to strain it because you want them drinking it, whoever's sick, like a broth. It's going to become a tea, and you can put that tea in a thermos and just let them sip on it throughout the day. And it's very warming because ginger is very warming, so it'll help. And if you want, the other thing you can do with ginger is you can juice it. If you don't have a juicer, you can just take some of the root and put it in a blender with a little bit of water because it will clog up a blender, and juice it or blend it and break it down. And then you can strain that, and you can either add it to your bone broth or you could eat it or drink it. You're going to add water, about twice as much water to the ginger juice because ginger is very, very potent, and you don't want to just try and drink it alone because it will burn very badly. But the fresh juice, just so you know, fresh ginger, when you make the broth or you're making fresh ginger juice, is much more potent than using the dehydrated herb. And you can buy the dehydrated herb, but using fresh ginger is so much more potent. So you would want to use it. So just a note on ginger. It is what they call a narrow spectrum antiviral, and it's narrow because it doesn't work on many viruses, but it does well on respiratory viruses. So it's called a narrow spectrum antiviral. You can grow ginger in your yard, so you'll never be without ginger. So when this last virus, my daughter got sick with coronavirus this past summer, and I went to make her some ginger broth, and I went to Freshfield Farms because they always have this big table full of ginger. And I wondered, do that many people really buy ginger? Because I'm always there and it's always full, so I thought, I'll just run to Freshfield Farms and I'll get some ginger and come home and make ginger broth, add a little bit of ginger juice. So I go there, and it was empty. There was no ginger. The first time ever I went, and it was empty. And I asked, I'm in a panic, do you guys have any ginger? And they're like, their shipment didn't come in. So I thought, well, let me go to Publix, because they have ginger too. Go to Publix, and they were out of ginger.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh no, I'm going to have to go home and dig. And I was in a hurry. I was on my lunch break from work. I was working from home, and I thought I'll just cut it up and let it simmer while I'm sitting here working. But I went to there's an Asian market by my house, and they had ginger, thank God. So I was able to get my ginger. But my point being, if you want to grow your own ginger, it's very easy to grow. You can go to the grocery store and buy root, and look for pieces that have these little eyes popping out. I don't know if everyone can see the little eyes popping out. That's what's going to grow. So you could actually cut this piece in half right here where each eye is and grow, separate sets of ginger. The same thing here. You can look, there's an eye coming out here, I could break this off. And if I let this sit in my house, other eyes will start popping up on this ginger that I could grow. So like this is Thai ginger. It pretty much tastes the same. It does have, I think when you mix it with regular ginger and when you mix it with turmeric, I don't know if you guys know the turmeric, but it has a chemical in it called curcumin that's really good for inflammation. The turmeric does. That a lot of people like to take curcumin for from the health food store. But ginger, especially Thai ginger, and black pepper, the peppercorn, is really good for helping your body absorb that curcumin. So a lot of people will drink it with ginger and black pepper. But you can see on this ginger, I dug these up yesterday, and you see these little eyes popping up. So if I wanted to break these up into new plants and pass them out, I could do that. I could just cut this piece off and grow this. You could, these already kind of have sprouts, but you could cut this, and eventually they'll start sending little eyes up like this. And that's what you're going to plant. So you look for this one. I know you can't see it, but behind here there's a little eye popping up. And it's just an easy tea. It's very medicinal, good flavoring, but it works great wonders when you're sick. So that's one that I wanted to go over. This is another really good herb, and it's invasive in Florida. It's called fish mint. Its botanical name is Houttenia cordata. In the South, they call it hootenanny. You'll hear a lot of people talk about hootenanny, the chameleon plant. If you go to an Oriental store, it's often called fish mint. And I'm going to pass this bag around, and when you smell it, you'll know why it's called fish mint. It's like fish, unless you like the fish. So hootenanny is easy to grow here. Like I said, it's invasive, and you don't want to plant it in your yard. You could put it in a pot if you really want to grow it, and make sure the seeds fall into the pot. And the reason you may want to eat hootenanny, or a lot of people eat it in salads. A lot of the people that consume it just raw are putting it into a salad. They're putting it into egg rolls. They're putting it into sushi. But it's a broad spectrum antiviral. So this hootenanny is good for a lot of different viruses. And one of the viruses it's been known to have chemicals that are effective against is corona type viruses. Now, not specifically COVID-19, but corona type. There's many different coronaviruses. So it's something that you could use against those type of viruses. And the same thing with licorice. The licorice root is another broad spectrum antiviral. So if you're looking to get something, a tea, you want a nice warm tea, and you also want that medicinal benefit, you can drink licorice tea. And they make many mixes of it. It's often in chai tea. If you guys like the chai tea that you pour the milk into, that often has licorice in it. There's some brands at Publix and at Walmart called Traditional Medicinals. Yogi tea, I saw some out here in one of the baskets. But those are medicinal teas. And what they've done is they've combined different plants into these little tea packages. And all you have to do is, pour the water over it. So an infusion is a tea. You don't boil it. Now, root crops are different. Root crops you usually do boil. But most tea infusions that you're making from the leaves, you're not going to boil. You're going to bring your water to a boil. You're going to turn it off. You're going to put your herb into the cup. And then you're going to pour the water on top of the herb and let it sit 10 minutes, at the most. Now this is peppermint, and I love peppermint. It's easy to grow in Florida. It loves the winter. It loves the cool weather. It loves the shade. And Karen, if you want, I forgot to pass these around. An easy vitamin C in Florida is to save your orange peels. Save them up, cut them in strips like this, and if you have a dehydrator, dehydrate them at 108 degrees or below to keep the medicinal properties. And then I run mine through a coffee blender, and then you can add them to tea mixes. So this tea mix has some orange peel, it has rose petals. Oh, that's the wrong one. It is, that's it. Nope, that's Perilla. One of these here had, maybe I didn't get it out, but one of them, I may not have brought it, had orange peel, rose petals, this plant called Perilla. And all these you can grow in your own yard and you can make teas, but that's an easy vitamin C, really easy. So when all coronavirus first started and you couldn't find any vitamins even in Walmart and everyone was panicking, you could, if you have your own vitamin C, you don't have any need to panic. You're getting it in a whole food, and it's even more potent usually that way because it's already mixed up with the plant the way God intended it to be, and your body absorbs it really easily. This is another plant that has like a sour absorbic acid. Absorbic acid is your vitamin C. It's a hibiscus. It's called Roselle. I think I've heard it by many different names, but it's a hibiscus sabdarifa. So it's a specific hibiscus. You can eat the leaves. The Oriental stores sell them, and they call them sour leaf, and they put them in soups. In the States or in many countries, people use this calyx, which holds the flower. See, this flower is trying to come out. This is a summer crop. It's grown in summer. But this flower comes out, and the flower drops, and then you'll have seeds in here eventually. And this will look, there's a little jar going around that says hibiscus, and it's red. So it's back there, or in the second row. But that's just this piece of the plant. It's called a calyx, but everybody calls it hibiscus flower. So this is hibiscus water drink. This is this plant. See the little flower? And a lot of people make drinks from it, but you can make lemonade flavored drinks by dehydrating these pieces of the plant. You just peel it off and you stick them in a dehydrator. So you're looking for all these little buds, and they'll get big in summertime. This is not a winter growing plant, but they get really big, and they have vitamin C. They're good for regulating blood pressure. It's good for helping with glucose, blood sugar issues. And then you can eat the leaves. You can put them in salads. You can make, yes?
Is this the regular hibiscus plant?
No. So there's different types of hibiscus. There are so many different types of hibiscus. But this one is specifically called, it's called Roselle, is the common name. But the botanical name, and I want to make sure I'm giving it to you correctly, is hibiscus, I don't even see it on, sabdarifa, but it's Sabdirifa. That's the botanical name. So if you're looking, you can save the seeds from year to year, these little pods. So, you can dehydrate most of them, but take about 5 of them and save the seeds, and you'll never need to buy another plant again. Or what I do, if my plant dies over winter, like I did a really bad job or something of keeping it, because you can take cuttings from the plant, literally you could plant the cuttings and they'll root. But say all my plants died and I wanted another plant and I didn't want to go to the plant nursery and pay $3 for a 4-inch pot, because most of the time they'll sell these in the gallon pots and they're between $6 to $10. Well, what I'll do is I'll go to an Oriental store and I'll buy a package of them that they'll sell like for $3. And you can see in here, I could probably get 20 to 30 cuttings of plants. and root them myself, and you'd have them all throughout your yard, and you would never have a shortage of your hibiscus flower tea. So I got these because these are not a winter crop, so you're not going to see these in people's yards right now. There's a little store off of University Boulevard. There's several, but where I found these last night that was open later was there's an AutoZone at University in Powers, and if you go on Powers behind the AutoZone, there's like on the right-hand side there would be a Restaurant Depot, but right behind AutoZone, there's this new Asian shop that opened up, and the guy in there.
Is it on a little strip?
No, it's not even a strip, it's just a little building right behind AutoZone, like on Powers. So it's not on the University. My son said, "Mom, that's next to AutoZone, not behind it." But if you're looking at it from University, it's behind it. If you're looking at it on Powers, it's next to it. So depending how you look at it. And I don't even know the name of that store, but I know he had these, and I used to get them at a store off University that now has become the Dinosaur Asian.
Oh, yeah.
And and there was a Cambodian lady that owned it, and I loved her because like I had looked everywhere for fishnet, and I was just thinking I'm gonna have to grow this invasive plant. And I didn't really have time at the time, but when coronavirus came, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just make it. It's an antiviral, I'm gonna try it. So I made some because my son-in-law's a firefighter, and I wanted him to have something to take, poor guy. But the other thing you can do if you don't have time for teas, like me, I'm a mom and I work, but you know, my daughter calls me and she's sick and I want to make something, but when I get sick, I don't feel like sitting at a stove cook. When you get the flu, or if any of you have had coronavirus, you don't feel like cutting up and cooking. What you can do is what I call a tincture. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of herbal tinctures, but you take the plant property, and like this is ginger root, and you take the plant material and you pack it like this into a jar. Now you wouldn't pack it if it was dehydrated because it's much more concentrated, but a fresh herb you can pack the jar, and then you're going to pour. Depending on the herb, you pour like either 80 proof or 100 proof vodka over it, fill it up, put the lid on, and you let it sit for 4 to 6 weeks. You might go by every day, shake the jar. You don't have to. But after 6 weeks, you're going to strain it. And what's
And
left?
then drink the vodka.
You really don't want to, because now you will buy the dropper full. And that's so funny, because that's what everyone wants to think and do. But remember, you've now made this vodka into medicine, so you can't drink it like you would.
It's not a martini anymore.
No, it now becomes medicine. So this is ginger root that I use when I'm really sick. And I did get coronavirus, not this Christmas, but the one before. And, you know, I was sitting there, I was trying to work because I work from home, and my boss needed numbers. It was like around Christmas, and I'm like, I gotta get those numbers. But, so I thought, you know what, I got all these herbs. I had tinctures, so easy to take, because all you have to do, so this is fresh ginger juice. And then I poured, so fresh ginger juice is the best, most potent for respiratory viruses. Fresh. If you can't do fresh, the next best thing is a tincture. And dried herb would be, with ginger, this is not with all herbs, but with ginger, the dried herb would be your least favorite because it's not as potent, okay? But all I have to do now when I'm sick is I have a dropper, and I just take it 1 dropper full. And this is, you can do what's called, this is a double extraction, meaning I did the extraction where I, put it in a jar, strained it, a double extraction, and you can do double extraction with water where you're boiling it and then you're adding the water, and you're also using the alcohol. And now you have two different types of extractions coming together, water-based, which is really good for root crops, and alcohol-based. But I did a double extraction of vodka. So once I made my extraction and all I had was my strained ginger extraction, I took more fresh ginger and added it to that extraction to make a double extraction, because I was trying to get as close to fresh as I could. And you can do it. You don't want to do that with all herbs because you don't want too much of a good thing, because it can mess you up. And this is everybody that grows roses, that you like rose petals. I don't know if y'all saw the rose petals.
Beautiful.
So you can do the same. I add this to some teas, like you can put it in your teas and make a blend. But rose petals are very, very calming, and they're good for anxiety and stress. Just smelling rose petals calms me down. I don't know what it is, but I love rose petals. But once again, you can make an extraction. So this was made with brandy and honey. And filled the jar up, filled it about 2/3 full with brandy, and then 1/3 of honey. And then you let it sit, and then you extract it. And it's really good. I don't know if anybody's heard of Rescue Remedy. It's like the Bach flowers, a little bottle. This is probably 2 ounces. This is 4. But you can get a 1 ounce bottle, and you're probably paying $19 at like Whole Foods or Sprouts. And you can make this and have a big, you have a big quart of extraction. Most of what you're paying for will be, okay, your jar that you're going to use over and over, and then your brandy. And that's it. And then you can refill this bottle probably for years for that same cost. But this is the rose petal, and it makes a really pretty color. But if you want to just get an idea of the taste, just put a drop on your hand, so you're not touching the dropper. But you can use this, and it's 1 to 12 drops for anxiety is what you would take. Drops, not dropper fulls, just drops. So if you guys want to look at this, I'll pass it, or you want to taste.
Can you buy that? Already done? I'll get one of the.
I don't know if they sell the rose, but they do sell the Rescue Remedy. The Bach, it's called the Bach flower remedies, and they do sell it. Not necessarily rose petals, but theirs is a different mix.
Is it for anxiety?
Yeah. Yes.
Where would you buy that?
At Whole Foods or Sprouts, or you could go online and just look up Rescue Remedy. What, Miss Yolanda, did you?
Yes, for the ginger, I'm not confused, but sort of. Were you using dry ginger and then you also added fresh ginger?
No, so I took a fresh ginger root and I cut it up
Okay.
and packed it into a jar. Actually, what I did was juice this. I didn't even,
I was recording you so I could do it when I go home.
that's okay, that's okay. I juiced it. You can scrape it up and slice it up and put it in a jar, like a mason jar. And say we packed it, because it's fresh, you're gonna pack it as tight as you can.
Okay, after you juice.
Well, if you're slicing it, it's different. So you can either slice it or juice it.
Okay.
So I juiced mine, but you can slice it. And then you're gonna pack it, and then you're gonna add your alcohol on top of it. So let me tell you this book. It's a really good book. It's by Stephen Herod Buhner, B-U-H-N-E-R.
Yes, ma'am.
It's called Herbal Antivirals. And he goes over, most of the plants in here grow in Florida. Elderberry, ginger, the hootenanny. They all grow here in Florida. There's other plants, licorice, astragalus. It grows here in Florida. I just bought a plant. I'm going to try it this year. So for ginger, I'm going to read you what he says, just so you'll know where I'm going with this. Parts used, the root, and he's It's really a rhizome. He says, I know, but no one cares, it's a root. So if you're using ginger as an antiviral, the fresh juice cannot be surpassed in its effectiveness. That's why I said go fresh if you can. It takes about 30 minutes after drinking the fresh juice as a hot tea for ginger's compounds to enter the bloodstream. They reach peak concentration in about 60 minutes and then begin to decline. The fresh juice tea should be consumed every 2 to 3 hours in acute conditions, so if it's severe, or at the onset of colds or flu to keep the constituents at high levels in the blood. Fresh ginger juice tea. Juice 1 or more pieces of ginger in total about the size of a medium to large carrot. So, probably about this size, as you got, carrots straight up and down. So about 4 pieces the size of your thumb. Save the plant matter that's left over after juicing to make an infusion. So combine a 1/4 cup of fresh juice with 12 ounces of hot water. So you have to add that water because ginger juice is very potent. And if you've ever tried to drink it and not add water, it burns. I mean, you just can't do it. But you can add the water to it, and then that brings that hot, spicy feeling. It brings it way down where your body can handle it. So what I did was I took the same amount of juice, and then I added alcohol as a preservative.
So you had the juice and then you add the alcohol to make the jar
Yes.
and then let it sit for the 6 weeks.
Yeah, and actually, you don't have to strain that if you're just using the juice.
Okay.
But when I did mine, when he talks about saving the matter that's left over, I put that in the jar too.
Okay. In the jar with alcohol as well as the juice.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yeah, and often when I make what you call a tincture, they'll tell you to cut the plant up, it gets the juices going in the plant. I'll put it and just barely hit the blender just to get the plant juices flowing, and then pour it back in my jar with the alcohol on top of it, and then let it sit about 4 weeks, and then it's ready to go from there. So,
What did you say helped you absorb zinc?
zinc.
Yeah, absorb zinc. You mentioned one that would help you absorb zinc.
Oh, the quercetin. So quercetin, you can buy quercetin at a health food store, but apples and red onions have quercetin. There's a lot of other plants, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I know that's why I always get the red onions. They do have quercetin. So it's Quercitin, quercetin. And a lot of people have been drinking it with the coronavirus because it helps your body absorb the zinc, and the zinc helps you fight the virus. But when I make the broth, I just pick up the red onion. And if they say they were out of red onion, I would just get a regular onion. Yellow, white, whatever, it's going to work. So another plant that's really easy to grow, and I was on my way here and I saw it in my front yard and I pulled it up really quickly, is this plant. And you see how it sticks to me? I don't know if you guys ever seen this in your yard and it kind of sticks to your clothes. Have to pull it off. But it's called cleavers. It's a weed. It literally looks like a weed and grows like a weed. But in the medicine world, it's a really good herb. And a lot of people will order it back up, already cut up and dehydrated. But it's good for blood detoxification. So it cleans out your blood system, and it kind of detoxes your lymphatic system. So it's just a good herb to have around.
what is it called?
It's called cleavers. Let's see, Cleavers. I'm going to tell you what its botanical name is Galium, Galium, aperine, Aparine. And
Can you repeat that? Because she's recording.
yeah, Galium aperine. So Galium, Aparine. So It's a plant that a lot of people use, you know, for lymphatic issues or to detox.
Where can you find it other than if you can't find it in someone's yard?
If you can't find it where? Oh, in your yard?
Yeah.
Oh, you can look it up online, like Frontier Herbs, Star West Botanical Herbs. A lot of the herbal shops will carry it in bulk. And there's a place on University Boulevard called, Southern Nutrition. And they sell some bulk herbs in that one now.
What do you do with it? Just pour it, make a tea?
You can make a tea from it, you can tincture it if it's easier. But yes, you can make teas from it and it'll help, you know, lymphatic.